Hey YouTube, it's Numistacker here, and I'm back with you from sunny Florida. It's actually lovely to be here because it's incredibly cold in England at this time of year. Maybe a few daffodils poking through, but generally pretty cold and dreary. And in Florida, it's as it always is, just really rather nice and sunny. So before I wind you all up by talking about the nice weather, let's change the subject and focus on sovereigns, the sovereign. We haven't actually had a video on sovereigns for 3 or 4 days, a good maybe week, I don't know, I lose count. But sovereigns, as you know, are one of my absolute favourites. You probably know from this beautiful red box that this is a sovereign that was around in the 80s. You can tell the age of sovereigns just by looking at the type of boxes they come in. And this particular one was delivered to me over in the States. It was won at an eBay auction, and it's something that I always look up. I always kind of do a little bit of a search to see whether there are any bargain-proof sovereigns around. And this was an eBay auction. Maybe it didn't end on a Sunday, and it didn't fetch top dollar. So, of course, I bought it because I think, well, I certainly got it for, I think, less than I would have been prepared to pay in London. Maybe there aren't as many people in the US looking for these things, but do have a look out. So, 1984, and the authorised mintage of this coin was 22,500, although, as you'll see in a minute, the actual sales were a little bit less than 22,500. But this particular one comes with a strange certificate that I hadn't seen before, which actually has an American an address at the back for the Royal Mint at Barclays Bank or something, as well as the UK Mint address. And for some absolutely unknown reason, it comes with two certificates which are basically exactly the same. So 1984 sovereigns. Let's have a look at sovereigns in general before we have a look at this particular specimen, and you can give your idea on whether it's a good pickup or not. British sovereigns have lots of different heads. There's been 5 or maybe variations, maybe even 6 heads on these sovereigns. But I just wanted to show you a little bit about the mintages. So in the 70s, from 1974, the new type of sovereign was introduced after a bit of a gap, and the Royal Mint made a whole load of bullion sovereigns. So between 1974 and 1982, there were millions and millions of bullion sovereigns, and those are still incredibly plentiful and pretty cheap kind of bullion coins even today. So this list only shows those sovereigns with the Arnold Machin head, which is the head you'll see in a second. But between 79 and 84, there were proof sovereigns. The 1984 one that I've had, as you can see here, of all the ones with the Arnold Machin reverse head, which was the second head for Queen Elizabeth, the first one was by Gillick, had the lowest mintage at 19,975, and this is the head, against an authorised mintage of 22,500. So the next head was with the portrait by Raphael Makhlouf on, and that was around starting from 1985. And you can see they didn't produce any bullion issues during this period. So there aren't a lot of these coins around. And particularly in the 90s, it got down to some pretty low mintages. Around about 91, 92, there was a bit of a recession in the UK, and the reduction after the big splurge of the Tudor sovereigns, there were 23,471 of those 1989 sovereigns produced in various forms. So they're expensive, but they're not really very rare. And then they started in the 90s producing some pretty small quantities of proof sovereigns with this Makhlouf head. And this is the second head with Her Majesty aging just a little bit. The last period we're going to take a look at in this particular video is that period between 98 and 2006 with the Ian Rank-Broadley IRB obverse. And you can see in 2000, for the millennium, they started to produce bullion sovereigns again, with a big splurge in the millennium, and then realised they'd produced too many probably, cut back again 2001, a bit more in 2002. But they produced quite a few bullion sovereigns, building a market for bullion sovereigns. Proof sovereigns, much higher than in the 90s, early 90s, a little bit more confidence in the economy, and they carried on producing between 11 and 15,000 odd sovereigns up until 2006, starting to lead up to the time of the world economic disaster, banking failure. And maybe another video will take a look at the later sovereign mintages as well. So this is the third head as well by IRB. Let us move on to the aforementioned 1984 sovereign. So we now know there were about 19,500 of these sold out of an authorised mintage of about 22,000. Quite plentiful. A lot of them have been messed up over the years and handled and given to children and chewed by dogs and cats and stuff. So, you know, they're not totally plentiful and cheap and nasty, but they went through quite a few years in the doldrums where people didn't really give them any more value than a basic bullion sovereign. I think that there is now the start of a resurgence of interest in proof sovereigns, and I wouldn't be surprised if over the next 10 years there was a little bit greater recognition of the intrinsic value of the beauty of a proof sovereign. I know that, you know, if I were to be given, obviously, a regular bullion sovereign and one of these proofs, if there was nothing between them, I would always take the proof. And even if the proof was a little bit more expensive, I would still take the proof generally. Why? No good reason particularly. I just really appreciate the extra artistry and quality that has gone into the minting process. And so proof sovereigns are something I will continue to collect, as are all types of sovereigns when I see them at the right price, or I'm collecting that particular mini series. Sovereigns are a coin I think is a real staple in terms of collecting. It has been for many, many years in the UK, but it's nice to see a little bit of interest in sovereigns emerging in the US as well. So this particular one has got one or two little fingerprints and handling marks, but because I bought it at a reasonable price, I can afford to have it conserved by NCS and then graded, and hopefully that conservation will pay off. It'll be graded with a good grade, and it will then go into my collection of sovereigns and will be enjoyed for quite a while. So hope you liked that video and learnt a little bit about the sovereign mintages, and please like, subscribe, and let's have all of your comments.